I kind of am a bit worried that my weather router is maybe a little confused about things, maybe a lot of things, but this is, I guess, day 6. So I think there was a definite, number one, our weather router did not get back to us until we had departed and chose a port. So that was an issue. Number 2, I was not planning to go this way in the beginning. I was dissuaded by this 7-knot current that was running between Lombok and Bali, and I was just trying to avoid it. It never occurred to me that going this route would put me into a 600-mile, 2-knot adverse current. So basically, driving against the Gulf Stream for 600 miles. I had no idea I was getting into this and didn't figure it out until today. My weather router gave us a forecast after we were at sea saying that there was a 2-knot current around Timor. Okay, around Timor. He didn't say for 700 frickin' miles along our entire path. So that I did not know. So today we did make the good move of going around Wetar, and we skipped the current. There was no current there. And I think if we headed on north, we would have avoided this over a half day of motoring into a current. Instead, we'd be motoring at least into some winds, which I can feel some winds here that I would like to pick up on. So the other issue was that, so I did not realize that the chain of islands that runs from Allure through Flores, through Bali, Lombok, and then goes on up, runs a 2-knot current, and then it runs maybe 7 knots going through the narrow inlets. I assumed the currents was just going through the narrow inlets, not in 10,000 plus deep water, but no, it is in 10,000 plus deep water running across the entire island chain. And so the alternative is you could go very close to shore, which is very dangerous to be doing at night, and the charts are really bad, and most things are not lighted. And the other thing is that we've already committed to Madonna Bay. And that's why I say the risk factors in sailing around the world. Number 1, government. Number 2, weather. Number 3, the boat, right? And the government is the biggest risk factor because they always do things that make you as a sailor do things that are more dangerous, that are bad seamanship, but they always force you into it and then say you're a criminal if you don't follow these things that you just could not have foreseen. I mean, I think the other thing was that I was working all out, non-stop, ever since the tank went bad. And I never had a break for reflection or doing anything. And my original plan to go to Kupang and then sail to Bali Lombok was a good plan. I should have went with that plan, and we could have just found our way around the current near shore or something. That was what we should have done. I just didn't know that there was going to be a Gulf Stream running 700 miles right in the path where we wanted to go. So what we're doing now is, at the advice of our weather router, is we're going mostly north to try to get some winds and get out of the current stream. And then we'll get a southbound current and also some winds farther north and sail in. Because staying on the course that we were on, the only option was to get a fuel stop. Our permit from the government, our declaration to the government does not allow us to get a fuel stop, right? Does not give us that option, right? So we would have to stop and say, hey, we really need fuel, we didn't need it, and hope the people that don't speak our language are going to agree with us and see that that is good seamanship, which I have never found a government official yet that knew anything about seamanship. So the only way to get there is to sail there. We cannot motor at 3 knots for 8 days. We don't have enough fuel to do that. We just don't have enough fuel to do that. So we could motor and catch some winds, and if we can catch some winds, and then maybe we can motor at the end, but we cannot motor at 3 knots for 8 days, right? It just won't. We'll run out of fuel. We'll have to stop somewhere. That's the only alternative to doing that. Otherwise, we get pushed back if there's no wind and there's no fuel. That's the other thing, is near those islands, that island chain that includes Lombok, are typically very windless, right? So you need to get farther north to get some wind. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to catch some wind, and eventually we'll catch a southbound current. I see some wind here, and we'll try to take advantage of it. Unfortunately, I have to drop the pole to do so. All right, so we got 6 days behind us on this passage to Lombok from Darwin, Australia. So yesterday we got caught up in the current and we had to motor because there were calms relatively near the southern chain of islands. And so we went north at the advice of our weather router, but just to get out of the current, and we were able to get out of the current about like 7:30 or something longitude, and then we kind of overnight we drifted back into the current, so we went up a little farther north, and it seems like we're not in the current, but winds are relatively light tonight. They're supposed to pick up tomorrow. I guess I don't know what to believe for sure. So I guess I believe what I can verify from multiple sources in my own experience. I kind of am a bit worried that my weather router is maybe a little confused about things, maybe a lot of things, but in particular, the issues are, he tells us to go on bearings, but he doesn't know our position, and he says that there will be a current, but there's no reason to believe that we wouldn't just ride over it. We've asked him for waypoints multiple times. We've asked him for times and dates of weather forecasts. He's not been able to do that. He's been suggesting us go hundreds of miles in the wrong direction to catch a southbound current that supposedly will get us there quicker. I don't know how that would work and why you wouldn't catch the southbound current when it was kind of closer to where you were instead of way northeast when you're heading southwest. So for those things that we really can't verify and seem a little odd, we're going to ignore. My wife did some researching of the currents and seems to think that you can catch a southwest current and you won't have too much problem with the east setting current. If we go go south of 7 degrees, kind of in the middle of Flores, and I think that's, if nothing else, that's sound advice because that doesn't take us off our path, right? That our rum line. I think the issue we had when we diverted was that we could not afford to go 2 knots, average 2 knots speed over ground, or 3 knots speed over ground while motoring. That we just simply did not have the fuel to do that, and so there were basically 3 different scenarios I could think of, but maybe there were more if you keep on thinking, that you could try to overcome that. You either try to go north and try to get out of the current, is what we did. You can go south, and while you know that the current between the Straits of Lombok and the island to the east of it or the island to the west of it run quite fast and are quite difficult to overcome. You can try that, but at least maybe you have the open ocean. So that was an option we didn't do. We haven't done yet, I guess. It probably won't do. But it's an option, and that was kind of our original thing. That we're going to go to Kupang, come from the south, but we were convinced by another cruiser that was a very difficult option, especially for an underpowered sailboat, where ours is going to be underpowered relative to most cruising sailboats here in the Indian Ocean, I would think. And then the third option is you just use your fuel. You run out of fuel. You're close enough to a port that has fuel, and you just get it even though you're not checked into the country. That's a possibility, but not one you want to kind of seek out. And seems a bit irresponsible that if you can sail some to... So, I mean, the winds are fair, right? So they are fair winds. They may be light winds, they may be slow. As you can see in the background is the flogging sails with our 7-mile-an-hour winds or whatever. You will get there, right? And so as long as you have fair winds. I think the other thing that was kind of problematic about our weather router, he wanted us to go way north, but that continually is making our wind angle worse, right? Because of the winds, we're in the southeast monsoon, so the winds are going to come from the south or the east, right? And so the more north you have, the more bad wind situation you have. So I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if he's playing a practical joke or if he's confused, or I don't know. Maybe he's right, but he just is not able to communicate effectively. I mean, I think had he gave us a reasonable plan with, hey, here are 5 waypoints, here are 10 waypoints, here's the weather for these waypoints, here's the predicted current, we probably would have followed that, but we didn't have anything close to that. It was just kind of like, trust me, go to this spot. Okay. In the middle of the ocean, in the wrong direction of where you want to go. So, kind of scary for that. So that was not the option we've taken. So right now, I think the more of the debate is like, we're using the steerage way rule, not to turn on the engine. I think we could have probably motored pretty well today and picked up a couple more knots per hour than we did. But I still think we're just too far out, and we don't know the situation when we leave this part of the Banda Sea and we get closer to the islands that have more of a wind shadow. That is, they don't have as much wind this time of year, according to Windy. My Windy that goes out to the 9th. And so I think that we're going to have tomorrow should be higher winds, maybe low force 4, high force 3, and then the Thursday we're going to have light winds like today. And then Friday, we're going to have high force 4, maybe low force 5, right? So we're going to have some winds. So I guess that if there's a wind against current situation, that could be a problem. So I guess if the current's heading southwest and the wind's coming from it should be okay, I think. It should be okay, I think. I don't think we're going to have a wind against current situation if Jana's current forecast is right. The thing that really kind of makes me confused is I read the cruising guide. I think there's only really one I have. I should find the author, but he has a section in the beginning of every chapter. He has a section about the prevailing currents and he's saying that the prevailing currents for all the islands that we have gone past, except for Timor, they would be setting west during the southeast monsoons. That's the cruising season. That's what we're in, right? The southeast monsoons with the southeast trades. And that was just not what we found. And I just don't... And that's not what Jana's research turned up. I don't know if we can use my weather router as source. But, and I am trying to consult another weather router at this late date, but the plan is more or less we're going to go the rum line from here on out to Lombok, and hope we don't have any bad current situations. We have favorable currents or no currents or anything, and we have winds for some of that. And then as we get closer, and as we have a better idea if we have current situations, then we'll be able to know that we're within our range under power limits, or we're close to it. It's just predicting, your range under power when you don't know how much current is going to be against you, and you have evidence that quite a lot has been against you in the past, earlier on the passage. Then it makes you a little bit more cautious. Whereas if we were just like sailing in the trades, never had a current situation of any note or a mild current, but we've had pretty strong currents so far, and so it just pays to be a bit more cautious about your fuel reserves, even though I think we do have decent fuel reserves under normal circumstances for the distance that we have to go. But I don't know if we're in normal circumstances. Subscribe. Okay, so it's day 7. As you can see from the sails, we've 7 full days at sea. Not much wind today. We have been sailing slowly for much of the day, but we're going to turn on the engine after this, and we've used it part of the time today. I think we're at the stage now. Number one, we haven't had any adverse currents on this run in the 7 south parallel, so we've had some helpful currents, and we haven't had any adverse currents. And we're gonna go to Jana's waypoint because my weather router refuses to give waypoints. Anything that would be helpful to our voyage, he refuses to give, and then we have to go through 15 emails with him of him telling us to do things that are totally irrational and would keep us at sea forever, never ever get into port. We're at the stage now, we're only 400 miles away from Madonna Bay, that's very close to our range under power, depending on conditions, of course. It makes more sense with these comms. We should have 1 or 2 good wind days or decent wind days coming up, but you never know. And by decent, I mean maybe it hits 10 knots part of the day. Now we're looking probably at 5 knots of wind, and that's why the sails are so angry. So I think we're almost there. I think we're in the home stretch, and ironically, we're still on track for my estimate of getting there on the 11th, but maybe we'll get there the 12th, which would probably be better to get there on a Monday versus a Sunday for checking in. But you never know. We'll see what we see when we kind check out Do Battle with the Currents. Janice seems confident about the path of the southwest current, and although she's got a full-time job that is not related to weather, not unlike my weather routers whose full-time job is related to weather, she will look it up and give us those points. I'm sure she's given us the starting point, and we'll go from there. I don't know. I just, I can't believe I spent so much time with that guy that I just the amount and the last voyage was the same way. I was like, I need the tide stage. I can't get it. I don't have access to the internet. You are my weather router. I'll pay you to look up the tides. Please, look up the tides. No, he has got to talk about 15 different other things, not the tides, which was the only thing that really mattered for the voyage at that point, but he couldn't do it, right? And here it's the currents. What are the waypoints for the current? We need the waypoint for the favorable current. Just give us the waypoint for the favorable current. That's all we need. We don't need to talk about all this other stuff. You don't need to model our progress. You just need to give us the waypoints. But of course, anything that we actually need, he would not want to do because he's a jerk. So anyways, that's what you're dealing with. So anyways, I'm going to cut off a relationship with that weather router forever. I'm sick of it.